Hello and welcome to my channel. Today we will be doing a fall project using an old beat up flannel shirt ready for the trash, a dollar pumpkin from Target, some twine or jute, and a bunch of hot glue, and a stick that I found in my backyard. So to fill in the hole in the pumpkin, because it's a bit too large, I just took a plastic lid and glued it around, and then I cut a hole in the middle of that and then glued the stick into it to form the stem of the pumpkin. Now I did lose a lot of footage here, but it's pretty self-explanatory. You really don't need to see me gluing again and again and again. So there's the lid I talked about, so I'll just glue that in. And then this part that you missed, really I was just gathering the shirt up around the pumpkin, forming pleats and gluing as I went along. And this was kind of an accident, but it worked out well. The parts of the shirt that were left at the top kind of looked like leaves. I was originally going to cut them off, but I thought it looked really cute, so I left it that way. So now we have leaves for our pumpkin, pretty perfect. I thought also that I would be done at this point, but I felt that it needed a bit more. So I took some jute. The first thing I did was just tie around that top to make it a bit more secure. And then later on, I will be cutting, I think I did 6 strips of jute and wrap them around the pumpkin where the little, I guess you would call them the crease in the pumpkin usually is, and it just gave it a bit more dimension, made it look a little more cleaner and less like just a ball shape of flannel. This is the part I talked about where I'm taking the jute and just wrapping it around the pumpkin. So I glue it at the top and then just bring it around the side, down the bottom, and up the other side to make those little creases that you see in pumpkins. Now because I had plenty of shirt left over, and I also had these dollar pumpkins from, let's see, I got these at AC Moore actually, so they were in sale for $1. You can find them also at the dollar store as well. So it's basically the same technique as the big one. Now this one had a stem that I could just pull out, so I did pull it out. I was going to reuse it, but it just didn't seem big enough, so I used part of the stick that I used for the big one. So I did the same thing as I did for the large pumpkin. I just gathered the material up around the pumpkin, and then I glued the stick into the top for the stem. Now for this one, I did have to trim the fabric at the top because it was just a little too much, but I did leave enough so that it also looked like it had leaves on the top, and secured it with the jute so that it stayed a little bit more secure. Now moving on to our bonus project of the day, I found this frame in AC Moore's As Is section. So basically that means there is damage to it. So you just saw, I showed you there's a little chip in the gold part. Here I'm trying to show you the price. I don't know if you can see it. They had marked it down to I think $2 or $3. So it was the perfect piece to use for a project, especially because that little chip was very easy to fix with the hot glue gun, which is what I'm doing now. So I just glued that back in place and wiped the excess glue off, and then we were ready to start our project. For what we're doing with this frame, I don't need the backing, so I'm just taking a razor blade and cutting that off. I was going to remove the glass while I painted the frame, but it was really hard to work with, and I didn't want to end up with a video about how to clean up broken glass. So I left that in there, and I'll just be taking a hot glue gun and running it along the edge of the frame and glass just to make sure that it stays in. I mean, it wasn't coming out anyway, but just to be on the safe side, I went ahead and did that. Here's one of my very favorite paints. You see me use it a lot. It's DIY paint, and this one is called Little Black Dress, and that is what I will be painting the frame with. Now I could have taped off the glass so that I didn't get paint on it, but really it's so easy to scrape off after you've painted it that I think it takes more time to try and tape it off nicely than to just scrape the paint off when you're done. So I'm just using a foam paintbrush and giving this a nice coat of paint. Now because this is plastic, the first coat's going to look very, very streaky. So it's more like a primer coat. So I will eventually give this 2 coats of paint, and it does dry very quickly, so it was a quick process. Next step, I'll be using Chalk Couture's Spirit of Halloween transfer on the glass to give it a little Halloween flair. Now, truth be told, I am doing this before the frame is actually dry. Definitely don't recommend that, but time was not on my side for this day, and I wanted to get this video done to show you. But it all worked out in the end, so no big deal. So when you're using a transfer, always mark the back with which transfer you're using, and that way you also know which side to put the transfer back on when you're done, because these are reusable, which is absolutely wonderful. I love them. You've seen me use these before. So I'm fuzzing the background or the back of it very well. So all that means is I'm taking away some of the tackiness from the transfer because it'll stick really, really well to glass, but I want to make sure I remove it without ruining my transfer. So I'm just positioning it on the glass until I like where it is, kind of centered, smoothing it out to get the air bubbles out. Our tools for this next step, a medium-sized squeegee and a detailed squeegee, and 2 types of chalk paste, yellow and a black. I will be doing this in sections, so basically that just means I'll put the paste on the top section of the transfer. Do you hear my oven in the background? I'll lift it up a little bit so it doesn't dry too much, and then continue on with the rest of it. Now to clean it up a little bit. So I'm just taking a razor blade and scraping off any paint that I got on the glass. Easy peasy. Here you see me wiping back some of the black paint so that we get a nice contrast between the gold peeking through and the black. And also after I recorded this video, I decided to add some white wax. You know how I love white wax if you watch some of my videos. It just really gave it a little bit more of an aged look, and I thought it went really well with the Halloween theme. And then the last step was just cleaning up the glass a little bit, getting off my fingerprints. There goes my oven again in the background. I'm making homemade granola and it is so good. So I'll just keep wiping until I like that part, and we are done our project. So stick with me and you'll see the photos in the end to show you it all pretty and decked out for Halloween.